Young nurse saves old lady on the plane, millionaire CEO witnesses and falls madly in love. The Boeing 757 shuddered through turbulence at 37,000 feet, but Maya Rodriguez barely noticed. She was too focused on the elderly woman in seat 14C who had been clutching her chest and breathing erratically for the past 10 minutes. The flight attendants had moved past twice without seeming to notice, but Maya's trained eye as a cardiac nurse caught what others missed: the subtle signs of a heart episode in progress. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Maya asked quietly, leaning across the aisle from her middle seat in coach. The woman looked to be in her 70s, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun and wearing a white respectable dress. "I'm fine, dear," the woman whispered, but her face was pale and a sheen of sweat beaded her forehead. "Just a little tired." Maya didn't buy it for a second. She unbuckled her seatbelt and moved to the empty seat beside the woman, her nurse instincts overriding airline protocols. "My name is Maya. I'm a cardiac nurse at Mercy General in Chicago. Can you tell me where the pain is?" The woman's eyes widened with relief and fear in equal measure. "Eleanor," she managed. "Eleanor Ashford. The pain. It's like someone sitting on my chest. Goes down my left arm." Maya's blood ran cold. Classic heart attack symptoms. She pressed the call button repeatedly while gently taking Eleanor's pulse, rapid and irregular. From her purse, she pulled out a small bottle of aspirin she always carried. "Eleanor, I need you to chew these," Maya said, placing 2 tablets in the woman's palm. "Don't swallow them whole, chew them up. It'll help with blood flow." A flight attendant finally appeared, looking annoyed. "Ma'am, you need to return to your seat. This woman is having a heart attack," Maya said firmly, never taking her eyes off Eleanor. "I need you to ask if there's a doctor on board and get me the medical kit. Now." The attendant's demeanor changed instantly. Within minutes, the cabin was buzzing with quiet urgency. A retired physician from first class confirmed Maya's assessment, but it was clear that Maya's quick thinking and immediate intervention had likely saved Eleanor's life. What Maya didn't notice was the man in seat 2A, who had witnessed the entire scene with growing admiration. David Chen, CEO of Chen Medical Technologies, had flown countless hours for business, but he'd never seen such immediate compassion and competence. He watched as Maya held Eleanor's hand during the emergency landing in Denver, speaking to her in soothing Spanish when the older woman revealed she was frightened because she didn't speak much English. At the hospital, as paramedics wheeled Eleanor away, Maya started to leave quietly. But David caught up with her in the waiting area. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying a slight nervousness that was unusual for him. "I'm David Chen. I was on the flight, and I wanted to thank you for what you did back there." Maya looked up at him, tall, maybe 45, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Anyone would have done the same thing," she said simply. "No," David said, shaking his head. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have minded their own business, assumed someone else would handle it. You saved that woman's life." Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. "I'm just a nurse. It's what we do." Before David could respond, a doctor appeared. "Are you the young woman who helped Mrs. Ashford on the plane?" "Yes," Maya said, standing quickly. "How is she?" "She's stable. You caught it early. She had what we call a silent MI, a heart attack that could have been fatal if not treated immediately. She's asking for you." Maya followed the doctor, leaving David standing alone in the waiting room with a business card he'd been about to give her still clutched in his hand. Eleanor's room was quiet except for the gentle beeping of monitors. The older woman's color had returned, and she smiled weakly when Maya entered. "There's my angel," Eleanor said, reaching out with a trembling hand. "The doctor says you saved my life." "You're going to be fine," Maya said, taking her hand. "That's what matters." "I was flying to Denver to see my grandson graduate from college," Eleanor said, tears in her eyes. "I almost missed it because I was too proud to admit I was sick. If it weren't for you." Maya squeezed her hand gently. "But you didn't miss it. And now you'll be there to see many more graduations." Eleanor studied Maya's face carefully. You have such a good heart, dear. But I can see sadness in your eyes. What troubles you? Maya was surprised by the perceptive question. My grandmother passed away 6 months ago, she found herself saying. I was her primary caregiver. Sometimes I wonder if I did enough, if I could have saved her too. Oh, honey, Eleanor said softly. Caring for someone you love until the end, that's not about saving them from death. That's about making sure they don't face it alone. I'm sure you gave her the greatest gift possible. That night, in her hotel room, Maya cried for the first time since her grandmother's funeral. There was something about Eleanor's words that reached a part of her heart she'd kept locked away. The next morning, she was surprised to find David Chen waiting in the hospital lobby. I hope you don't mind, he said, looking slightly embarrassed. I wanted to check on Mrs. Ashford, and I was hoping to catch you. She's doing well, Maya said, wondering why this stranger seemed so invested. They're keeping her a few more days for observation, but she should make a full recovery. That's wonderful news. David hesitated, then pulled out his business card. I know this might sound strange, but I run a medical technology company. We develop equipment for hospitals, monitors, diagnostic tools, things like that. What I saw you do yesterday. It made me realize how important the human element is in all of this. I'd love to get your perspective sometime, maybe over coffee, about what tools would actually help nurses like you save more lives. Maya looked at the card, Chen Medical Technologies, David Chen, CEO. Her eyes widened. You're David Chen? As in the David Chen who revolutionized cardiac monitoring systems. Now it was David's turn to look surprised. You know my work? Every cardiac nurse in America knows your work, Maya said. Your portable EKG system has probably saved thousands of lives. We use your equipment every day at Mercy General. David felt a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with professional pride. Here was someone who understood not just what he did, but why it mattered. Would you like to see Eleanor before you go? Maya asked. I think she'd enjoy meeting the man whose equipment is helping monitor her heart. Eleanor was sitting up in bed, looking much stronger, when they entered her room. She immediately zeroed in on the dynamic between Maya and David with the sharp eye of someone who'd lived long enough to recognize the spark of something special. Well, she said with a smile. And who is this handsome gentleman? Maya made introductions, and Eleanor listened with growing interest as David explained his company's work. But Maya noticed that David kept steering the conversation back to her nursing experiences, asking thoughtful questions about the challenges she faced, the equipment that worked well, and the gaps that still existed in patient care. You know, Eleanor said as they prepared to leave, my late husband always said that the best partnerships, whether in business or in life, happen when two people share the same mission but bring different strengths to achieving it. Maya felt her cheeks warm, and she noticed David looking equally flustered. Over the next 6 months, what started as professional consultations evolved into something deeper. David would call Maya for her input on new product designs, and their conversations would drift from medical equipment to childhood memories, favorite books, and dreams for the future. Maya found herself looking forward to his calls, appreciating his genuine curiosity about her world and his respect for the work she did. David, for his part, was falling in love not just with Maya's compassion and intelligence, but with her complete lack of interest in his wealth or status. She challenged his ideas, made him think differently about the impact of his work, and brought a warmth to his previously ordered life that he hadn't known he was missing. Their first real date was at Eleanor's invitation. She had recovered fully, and invited them both to her grandson's college graduation party. Maya was nervous about meeting David outside of their professional context, but the evening felt natural and right. They talked for hours in Eleanor's garden while the party continued. Around them. I have a confession, David said as they walked among the roses. That first day at the hospital, when I said I wanted your professional input, that wasn't entirely true. Maya raised an eyebrow. Oh? I mean, I did want your input. Your perspective has changed how I think about everything we develop. But, mostly, I just wanted to see you again. There was something about watching you care for Eleanor, the way you put her needs before everything else. I've never met anyone like you." Maya was quiet for a moment. "I have a confession too," she said finally. "When I looked up your company that first night, I spent 3 hours reading about your work. I told myself it was professional research. But really, I was trying to understand the man who stood in that waiting room for 2 hours just to make sure a stranger was okay." Their relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared values rather than quick passion. David would visit Maya at the hospital during his business trips to Chicago, always amazed by her competence and compassion. Maya would spend weekends in Seattle, learning about his company and offering insights that led to breakthrough innovations in patient care technology, but it was Eleanor who remained their strongest champion and wisest counselor. She and Maya developed a grandmother-granddaughter relationship that filled the void left by Maya's loss. Eleanor would call weekly, sharing stories about her late husband and offering gentle advice about love and life. "That young man adores you know," Eleanor said during one of their calls, about 8 months after they'd met. "We're taking things slow," Maya replied. "We both have demanding careers, and long-distance relationships are complicated." "Honey, life is complicated," Eleanor said with a laugh. "Love is what makes it worth the effort." The first real test of their relationship came during Maya's most difficult case, a 7-year-old girl named Sophia who needed a heart transplant. Maya had become emotionally invested in the family, working extra shifts to be there for them, translating for Sophia's Spanish-speaking parents, and advocating tirelessly for the little girl's needs. When Sophia took a turn for the worse, Maya called David in tears. Without hesitation, he flew to Chicago and spent 3 days in the hospital waiting room, bringing Maya meals she forgot to eat and simply being present while she fought to save a child's life. Sophia received her transplant and recovered beautifully. But the experience showed both Maya and David what they meant to each other. David realized that Maya's compassion wasn't just admirable, it was integral to who she was, and he loved her more for it. Maya saw that David's success hadn't made him callous or distant. Instead, it had given him the resources to support the causes and people he cared about. A year and a half after their first meeting, David made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. He opened a Chicago office for Chen Medical Technologies and moved there permanently. "You're giving up Seattle for me?" Maya asked when he told her. "I'm not giving up anything," David said. "I'm gaining everything that matters. My company can operate from anywhere, but there's only one place where you are." They moved in together 6 months later, and their life became a beautiful blend of his business acumen and her caring heart. David funded a program at Mercy General for bilingual nurses, while Maya helped design patient monitoring systems that were more intuitive and less intimidating for families. 2 years after that turbulent flight to Denver, David planned a proposal that he hoped would be worthy of the woman who had changed his life. He arranged for Eleanor to fly to Chicago, supposedly for a medical checkup, but really to be part of the surprise. On a snowy December evening, Maya came home from a particularly difficult shift to find their apartment filled with candles and Eleanor sitting in their living room with a knowing smile. "What's going on?" Maya asked, looking between Eleanor and David, who seemed unusually nervous. "Sit down, dear," Eleanor said, patting the couch beside her. "David has something he wants to say." David knelt in front of Maya, pulling out a ring box with hands that trembled slightly. "2 years ago, I watched you save someone's life without a second thought about what it might cost you. You taught me that success isn't measured in profits or products, it's measured in the lives we touch and the love we share." Maya's eyes filled with tears as David continued. "You've made me a better man, a better business owner, and a better human being. Eleanor has been telling me for months that I'm an idiot if I don't ask you to marry me soon." I may have said something along those lines, Eleanor admitted with a grin. David opened the ring box to reveal a simple, elegant solitaire. "Maya Rodriguez, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your love?" Through her tears, Maya looked at the two people who had become her family, David, whose quiet strength and generous heart had won her love slowly and completely, and Eleanor, who had become the grandmother she'd lost and found again. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, of course, yes. As David slipped the ring onto her finger, Eleanor clapped her hands in delight. Finally, she exclaimed. I was beginning to think you two would never get around to it. Later that evening, as they sat together on their couch with Eleanor between them, Maya realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin not with instant attraction, but with a moment of simple human kindness that reveals the character of a person's heart. You know, Eleanor said, looking at the engagement ring sparkling on Maya's finger, I've always believed that angels come in the most unexpected forms. Sometimes they're nurses on airplanes. Sometimes they're businessmen who notice acts of kindness. And sometimes, they're the love that grows between two people who choose to build something beautiful together. Maya leaned against David's shoulder, feeling his arm tighten around her. Outside, snow continued to fall on Chicago, but inside their small apartment, surrounded by the people who mattered most, she had never felt warmer or more at home. 6 months later, Maya and David were married in Eleanor's garden in Denver, surrounded by family, friends, and colleagues from both the medical and business worlds. Sophia, the little girl Maya had helped save, served as flower girl, her new heart beating strong and steady. As they exchanged vows under the same rose arbor where they'd had their first real conversation, Maya thought about the mysterious ways that life weaves people together. A medical emergency at 37,000 feet had led to the love of her life, but more than that, it had led to a partnership that would go on to revolutionize cardiac care in hospitals across the country. Their honeymoon was spent not on a tropical beach, but visiting hospitals around the world, observing different approaches to patient care and gathering ideas for new innovations. It was, Maya thought, the perfect beginning to a marriage built on shared values and common purpose. Eleanor, now 85 and still sharp as ever, served as the unofficial grandmother to their eventual children and the honorary board member of the Chen Foundation, which provided medical equipment to underserved hospitals and funded nursing scholarships for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. You see, Eleanor told their daughter Emma years later, as she taught the little girl to tend the roses in their Chicago garden, the very best love stories aren't about finding someone perfect. They're about finding someone whose imperfections complement yours, whose heart beats for the same things that make your heart sing. Emma, who had inherited her mother's compassion and her father's analytical mind, listened with the same attention Maya had once given to Eleanor's wisdom. Is that how Mama and Papa fell in love? Well, Eleanor said with a twinkle in her eye, it started with your mama saving my life on an airplane. But it became love because they both understood that the most important thing in life is taking care of each other, and taking care of the people who need help the most. As the sun set over their garden, 3 generations of women who had found each other through love, loss, and second chances continued their work among the roses, tending something beautiful that would bloom for years to come.